Kia ora and kia orana, warm Pacific greetings everybody. Welcome to our second workshop that we have today. We'll just start off with some introductions and then I'll shortly introduce you to our lovely facilitator today who's one of our generites. So I'm June, this is Alison, we've got Ray here and we've got our manager Therese will be joining us shortly, and then we've got one of our co-cutters here, Beth. So we're delighted to have Shelley Oliver, who first joined the generator in February last year to start a business in property management. So her business is Love Property Management, and she comes in with expertise and qualifications and experience, and we are looking forward to hearing what she has to share about this industry that could help renters. So over to you, Shelley.
Hello. Kia ora. Yeah, I was very fortunate to have the support of the generator last year, which helped me start my business from scratch. If it wasn't for the generator and the team, I wouldn't be where I am today. They even enabled me to go to a conference that I was only dreaming of that I could go to. So they enabled me to go to a conference and broaden my knowledge and do a bit of networking. And it was actually good to be at a table where other people had started their businesses. So it allowed me to hear their different experiences too, when I would not normally have been able to meet these people, because being in a small town on the North Island, you don't really have that much networking. So it helped me incredibly and taught me a bit more about the legislation. And it was nice to meet other property managers. So I thought I'd like to give back to the generator by helping tenants with questions and answers or any information they'd like to know. And I have composed a presentation with the help of the generator. Did everybody hear me? Oh, I can't hear anybody. But yeah. Okay, so that's my business called Love Property Management. I just thought I would name it something to show that I care about tenants. And I actually established the business on the 14th of February, which was Valentine's Day. So yeah, that's the name of the business, and I'm in a Tamaranui in the central North Island. So this presentation is for tenants to facilitate their tenancy, and I thought these would be very important actions to take throughout your tenancy. I think it's quite important when you first move in to take photos of the property. A lot of tenants move in and they just accept the condition of the property, and they don't have their own proof of the state or condition of the property. So it's quite important when you first move into a property, before you even move the furniture in, take photos. Just stand on every corner of the room, take photo, corner, floor, ceiling. That way it enables you to see if there's smoke alarms, if there's range hood or extraction fans, and just generally show the condition of the property. And that's your proof. When you move out one day, you can say, this is how I had the property, or this was what the property was like when I moved in. Also, if you keep your tenancy agreement and bond form safe. So in my instance, whenever I welcome a tenant, I have a folder that I give to the tenant. The folder like this, And it has a business card, it has a pen, it has the tenancy agreement, the bond summary, and a list of the condition of the property that they need to fill out. And I also put a little chocolate in there. So, and normally if they keep this in a safe place, I should have created a pack, but I didn't think about it. But if they keep it all in one place, and I've actually done a move out inspection report, and the same documentation has all been intact. So it's quite important to keep your tenancy agreement and bond form in a safe place so you can always refer to it. If there's something you're not sure about the tenancy, you've got that and you can refer to it. And then during your tenancy, it's quite important to report damage as soon as possible, or any maintenance. And then you've got a record and you can get it sorted as soon as possible. Some tenants don't like to report it because they feel like they're going to be charged for it. A lot of the times the damage is accidental and the tenant feels like they're liable. So, if you report it to your property manager or your landlord, you can talk about and try and establish how to pay it. If it's an accident, like a real accident, then the landlord will have insurance, and they can pay that. It's important to keep the property tidy. It doesn't have to be immaculate, but it just helps you keep on top of things. So when you do have inspections, if you're not maintaining it between inspections, I find it's quite important to have a nice property ready on the day, because sometimes the only time that the owner can get to see their property is from an inspection report, which has all the photos. They're relying on a property manager. Some of them are out of town, 3 hours away from town, and they can't drive for some reason to look at the property, so they're relying on the property manager. And just to give them peace of mind, if you've got your property nice and tidy, doesn't have to be a designer, but if it looks clean and tidy, it would be a good thing for your landlord, because then they've got a bit of a connection with you and they think, okay, I want to keep that tenant on. Look how nicely they're keeping the property. I mean, we all have busy lives. Sometimes the place is a bit messy, but if we could, on that particular day of your inspection, try and make it nice and tidy for the photos for the owner. And on this day of your inspection, it's also good to have any maintenance or damage that needs any repairs or addressing. And also during your tenancy, if you cannot pay your rent, it's actually really good to phone the landlord or the property manager and say, hey, I'm really struggling, or something's happened and I can't pay my rent this week. And then it allows you to have a discussion and try and come to some sort of solution. Sometimes it even prevents you from getting a bad record, because you get breached. You can have different breaches. So if you phone your landlord or property manager before and you say, unfortunately, I had to pay for my car that got wrecked and I'm so short, I just can't pay all the rent, or I can't pay the rent this week, then you make an agreement and then it stops the property manager from breaching. If you have 3 breaches within 90 days for your rent arrears, you can be evicted. But it's just common courtesy and respectful, and it'll help you if you can actually phone your property manager and make an agreement with the rent, so there's no surprises at the end of the week and it's like, oh, wait a minute, this person hasn't paid their rent. Oh no, I have to breach them. But if you phone them on the day or beforehand, then you could have the note on the system and prevent any breaching, which is very important for your record for when you want to rent your next place. Um, uh, and so, yeah, at the end of the tenancy, once again, it's quite important to take photos when you've moved all the furniture out and you've done your cleaning. If a property manager goes in there and they say that the carpet's not clean, or the kitchen or the oven's not clean, and you don't have any proof of that, and you refuse to pay it because you know when you left there you'd cleaned properly, you probably spent the whole day cleaning, and the property manager goes there a couple of days later, or even if you mow the lawns, you go there a couple of days later and the grass is grown, but you know you mowed those lawns. You need to have that proof, because they can say, no, we had to get someone in to clean it. But when you've cleaned it and you've got proof, so when you move out and you've done your cleaning, take those photos, then it enables you to get your bond back. Which brings me to the point of cleaning. It does not need to be a professional clean. By law, it only needs to be reasonably clean and tidy. So, some tenants feel like, oh no, we've got to get a professional cleaner in, or some property managers or some landlords say, no, it's not clean to our standard, and they are expecting it to be an Airbnb clean, which is not as what expected from the Residential Tenancy Act. So it just needs to be reasonably clean and tidy, and no rubbish remaining, and the lawns mowed. So if you get those photos, you've got that backing you up. So that's just something to think. Some people, they land up in a difficult position, and WINS have got a new program to help with housing support. They can help with the bond. It's for people, even if you're not on the benefit and you need to move into a property, but you don't have the bond and the move-in costs, WINS can actually help you up to a certain point. I think it is up to 52,000. If you're earning up to below 52,000, WINS can actually help you. They can help you with a rent and advance grant, or the bond, and sometimes moving costs. So it is available for people that are not on the benefit, but they're low income, but it's also available to those on the benefit. WINS are trying to support people and tenants and ensure that they're staying in their properties. So what they've come up with a grant. It's called a rent arrears grant. If they're at risk of losing their tenancy, WINS can help. If there's been damage to the property, WINS can help, but it's a case-by-case situation. If they start going back, if you start going back in your rent and there's a valid reason, you've been in hospital for 2 weeks, or you've had to go to a tangi, or you've had to leave the home for any reason, they will help you with your rent arrears. And then there's those as well, if they're wanting to move into a property, that WINS can actually provide a letter of assurance that they're going to pay the rent in advance and the bond. So some owners are a bit hesitant or reluctant to take on WINS beneficiaries, whereas I like taking on WINS beneficiaries because their rent is redirected. And so you've got guaranteed rent. But some owners or landlords are a little bit reluctant because they feel if they're on the benefit, they're not going to afford their rent. But WINS can give an assurance letter saying the bond will be paid, and also they'll contribute to any outstanding costs. It's also important for tenants, if they start lagging behind in their rent, to contact WINS to keep up to speed, and before they get into hardship. If there's any questions, please just stop me. Somebody asked, how does a tenant get a healthy homes check if the landlord hasn't provided a tenancy tribunal? So a tenancy agreement is deemed valid even if it's just verbal or if it's a text. And once there's if somebody's moved in, also if the landlord is receiving payments, is deemed a valid tenancy. But with the Residential Tenancy Act, nowadays you do need to have a tenancy agreement and you need to provide a healthy home statement. A healthy home statement, and this is a misunderstanding with a lot of tenants. Tenants seem to think that a healthy home statement is actually from a business that's gone into the property and done an inspection and seen that it's a paid inspection to make sure it's compliant. Actually, a healthy home standard is just a form that a landlord fills out and says, yes, it complies with the standards, which is insulation, extraction fans, heating, guttering, make sure everything's healthy. So they must issue this to the tenant, and if they don't, the owners or landlords can be liable for a fine. So what are the difference between tenancy agreements? A periodic tenancy is a day-by-day tenancy. So when you move in, is your move-in date, and it's just ongoing. And I should have changed that. It should say give 21 days notice because it's changed now. But normally if a tenant wants to move out, they give 21 days. So there's no end date. But the tenant can give 21 days notice and the landlord can end it for any situations if they're selling the property, family moving in, demolition, or if they want to give 90 days notice. A fixed term tenancy, it has a beginning date and an end date. And you can't give notice on normal situations, you cannot give notice unless both parties agree. The tenant might say, hey, I have to move out, I can't afford it, or I need to go they can agree that it ends sooner. And generally the rent cannot be increased during a fixed term, but if the agreement has a clause in it, then it can be increased. Okay. Is there any questions? Okay. So the next slide. Okay, the latest legislation is that landlords cannot refuse pets on reasonable grounds. So if a person's applying for the property and they've got a dog, for example, the landlord cannot refuse the dog. Unless it's something like a really small garden and they've got a really big Rottweiler, then it's not reasonable. Or if there's a body corporate that has rules that you cannot have animals. But generally, animals cannot be declined, and they must request the consent in writing, and it applies from the 1st of December. With that comes the pet bond. So this is for all new applications, not applications from the past. It's from as of the 1st of December. 2 weeks bond is required. The pet bond can be used for damaged carpets, strong odors, damage to property or gardens, scratching, scratching door frames. I've seen some door frames really badly scratched, any type of damage, and it's anything beyond fair wear and tear. As a tenant, you need to be responsible for all damage. Keep it tidy, keep the garden, manage any noise that doesn't affect the quiet enjoyment of neighbors, and provide information, the breed, the size, desexing references. Also, another thing to keep during your tenancy is keep photos and receipts of flea treatment, cleaning. So if there's any dispute at the end of the tenancy, you can say, I did actually maintain it properly. Here's flea treatments I've done. Anything related to having a pet. These are the tenant support agencies. They're all very useful. Two recent facilities that are really helpful are the last two. It's that is Tenancy Help. It's actually a tenancy AI website which you access, and you can put in a question relating to your tenancy, and it'll come back with answers. Anything regarding the legislation, rights, anything relating to a tenancy. It's not always 100% correct. So you do have to check the information and maybe go do a Google as well. And then there's also Renters United. They're an advocacy group. Sorry. So they're Renters United is an advocacy group. So if you feel like you have to go to tribunal and you feel not sure about it, they'll be able to help you and support you with that. And that's it.
Awesome.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, thank you so much, Shelley. Ray's got a question.
Oh, can you hear me, Shelley? Okay, so if I'm a landlord and I'm wanting to sell the property or move one of my children into the property, is it still 42 days notice that I have to give the tenant, or has that changed? Is that still the same?
It's 42 days notice. I think it was 42 days, then it changed to 63 days, but now it's back to 42 days.
Oh, okay, so it's back to 42 days notice.
Yes, so it can be family members. But in saying that, if the family doesn't, that property needs to be rented by family for 90 days. So you can't say family's moving in and the family stays there for a month and then you decide you want to rent again. It has to be 90 days rented by family.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Does anybody else have any questions? Awesome. Thank you to those who have sent their questions previously, as Shelley has answered them in her presentation. I hope that was helpful for you. So we've pretty much come to the end of our Zoom. We are thankful for Shelley for paying it forward and sharing your experience and just helping out those who are renting, and because it's not everyone knows their rights. So we are grateful that you can share the information that you have with us.
Okay, I'd like to add, if anybody has any questions, they're welcome to email me. They could just send an email saying, this is my situation and I can help them.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you, Shelley.
You're
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today.
Thank you, everybody.
And Shelley, very good presentation.
Ka kite.
Thank you.
Ka kite.